What did you find out about your child's school that made you see red? I got a call that my son's special needs kindergarten was on fire. By the time I arrived, Jalen was already being loaded into an ambulance. Nasty red burns covered his face, neck, and shoulders. His eyes were barely open, and an oxygen mask was the only thing keeping him alive. A teacher ran up to me. "Sir, we're so sorry," but I just pushed past her and climbed into the ambulance. I didn't hear a word. In hindsight, I should have paid more attention to how Jalen was the only child who seemed seriously hurt. Every other kid was just standing in the grass. The most I saw was a scrape, a bruised elbow, or crying from fear. Why was my child the only one actually hurt? Then the worst happened. During the ambulance ride, Jalen's breathing stopped. He flatlined. I dropped to my knees watching the doctors work. Pump oxygen into him. Do CPR. Everything. My boy was gone for 4 minutes before they revived him. By the time we got to the hospital, he was alive, but his heart rate was 21 beats per minute. They took him into the back immediately. I sat alone in the hallway for 8 hours, just waiting. Nothing but me and a tickling clock on the wall, reminding me how any second could be my son's last. When the doctor finally came out, his eyes were low. Jalen is alive, but the lack of oxygen caused severe brain damage. Jalen was in a coma. That night, I was sitting at Jalen's bedside when a paramedic walked in. I recognized him. He'd driven in the ambulance with me. "Sir, I feel morally obligated to tell you this," he said quietly. "We found your son in the janitor's closet. The door was barricaded from the outside with a mop handle. He was the only child still in the building." My blood went cold. I started hyperventilating. Someone had trapped my son in that closet. Someone left him there to burn. The next morning, I went to the school's second location. Why was my son locked in a janitor's closet during a fire? I basically screamed at the principal. She looked up from her paperwork. "Fires are hectic. Children wander. It's impossible to account for every single—" He was barricaded inside. Her eyes narrowed on mine. "Your son is nonverbal. He has meltdowns. He's bitten 3 staff members this year. Maybe someone was just trying to keep him calm in a quiet space, and the fire unfortunately started." She said, "Unfortunately," like it had rained during a parade. "He has brain damage, and I'm sorry about that, but your son requires extra attention. Maybe if you'd gotten him more help at home, my staff wouldn't be so overwhelmed." I literally saw red, but I just took a deep breath and left before I did something I couldn't take back. That night, a nurse came into Jalen's room. "Your son had a visitor earlier, another parent. She left this for you." It was an envelope. Inside was a drawing done in crayon. A stick figure man carrying a smaller stick figure child into a room, alongside orange and red scribbles everywhere. The fire. The man in the drawing had long dark hair and a mustache. There was a note underneath. "My daughter is in Jalen's class. She drew this." I stared at that picture for a long time. Long dark hair, mustache. Was this the man who took Jalen into the closet? The next morning I sat outside the school watching. At 3 p.m., a man walked out the side door. Long dark hair, mustache. That was him. A mom walked past my car with her kid. I rolled down my window and asked who that was. She glanced over. "Oh, that's Mr. Dennis. He's an aide." "Why?" "No reason." I rolled my window back up. "Dennis." That night I told the police everything. The officer cleared his throat. "Do you have physical evidence?" "I have a drawing from a witness." "A drawing?" The detective sighed. "From a child? That's not evidence. That's crayon. He left my son to burn alive." "Sir, without physical evidence, there's nothing we can do. I'm sorry." I walked out realizing nobody was coming to help. So that night I called my 2 brothers, Terrence and Dion. We grew up in the same group home together. I sent them photos of Jalen. Tubes everywhere. Burns wrapped in gauze. They didn't ask questions. They just asked where. We met at a parking garage at midnight. By 2 a.m., we were outside Dennis's building, run-down apartment complex on the east side of town. I'd followed him home earlier, just in case. We waited for a resident to unlock the main door and slipped in. Changed into black clothes in the stairwell, masks on. Terrence picked a lock. We crept inside. Dennis woke up to a blade under his chin and 3 men over him. He tried to scream, but we shoved a glove in his mouth. We dragged him to the bathroom, zip-tied his wrists and ankles. I stepped forward and took the sock out. "Tell me what you did in that closet, or we find out how long you can hold your breath underwater." He was sobbing. "Please, I didn't mean to hurt anyone." I grabbed his face. Wrong answer. I shoved his head into the bathtub, held it there, pulled him back up. "Try again." He broke. Told us everything. Turns out he'd been taking nonverbal kids into that closet for years. The principal covered for him because he's family. He said he left Jalen in there because carrying him out would look suspicious. We voice recorded everything. The next morning, we sent the recording out anonymously. Dennis never said a word. He knew better. He's now doing 40 years. Jalen woke up 2 months later, but he's not the same. He'll never be the same.